Okay, you're sitting in that interview, you fielded the first couple of questions almost effortlessly, and now you got hit with this next question. Tell me about your biggest weakness. I'm here to tell you this question is a trap. Even if it seems like it's an icebreaker or a throwaway question, pay attention to this question and prepare for it. That is key here because it is designed to test your self-awareness. It's designed to test your judgment, and a bad choice in how you answer this question could mean if you progress in the interview process further or if you actually get that offer. So how do you answer it? First of all, don't pull a cliche out of the air. Don't say something like, well, I always work too hard. I can see the interview panel rolling their eyes at that answer right now. So stay away from cliches. What you want to focus on is thinking about a real, it has to be real, not a lie, but a non-lethal answer. You want to show how you've worked to improve yourself over time. So here's an example. You could say something to the effect of, hey, you know what? I used to struggle a lot with delegating tasks. And since I've gotten a leadership role of this small team, I've really focused on how I can delegate to my team and extend trust to them so we can get our deliverables met. If I'm on the other side of that table and I'm the recruiter or the hiring manager and I hear an answer like that, I want to know more. I don't want to know more about your shitty delegation problems you used to have. I want to know more about how you extend trust to the team, how you balance workloads. You've effortlessly shifted that paradigm from your weakness to your strength, and that is where you want to be in answer to this question. In this video, we're talking about interview questions that are secret traps and how you can outsmart them every time. Let's be real, interviewing sucks, especially if you've been laid off and you're on this hamster wheel of interview after interview and company after company. Your resilience is taking a hit, but you don't want to underestimate some of these questions that are designed to be knockout questions in disguise and a big trap. My name's Rob. I am a recovering 27 plus year HR professional that has worked at some amazing companies in my career. And I want to take what I've learned there and share it with you in hopes that you can land your dream job, get that promotion, or just survive corporate America. So in today's video, I am breaking down, again, 8 different questions that could be traps set for you in these interviews. And I've seen people time and again crash and burn on these questions where they are considered knockout questions and they do not progress in the interview. They do not get the offer. And frankly, I've crashed and burned on some of these questions too. So why are they dangerous? They seem simple. They seem like a throwaway question or an ice-breaking question or just a procedural question, but they are designed to test your judgment, your self-awareness, and your alignment with the company, alignment with the team, alignment with the hiring manager. One bad answer could actually spell disaster and ruin your chances for moving forward in the process. They aren't just get to know you questions. They're used to filter people out of the applicant pool for the role in question. So number 2, what are your salary expectations for this role? You need to think about how you're going to navigate this question because I promise you it will come up. First of all, if you give too low of a number, it could kind of signal that you're a little bit desperate. It could also inform a lowball offer if you get to the offer stage. If you give a high number, it could signal to the team that your expectations are not aligned with reality. You haven't done your homework. Or it could just signal, hey, this person's too expensive and we're not even going to bother wasting anybody's time if that's what their salary expectation is. So how do you answer it? You might consider answering a question with a question and say something to the effect of, hey, I'm curious, what is the salary range for this role? And based on their answer, you just have to lean into it one way or the other. I would recommend don't say the top of the range if they do actually give you the range, but don't say the bottom either, come in the middle. Also, if they don't answer that question well or whatever you're asking and you kind of get to a point where you're forced to give a number, I would have one in your back pocket saying, what is your lowest salary you'll accept? And then maybe add 10 to 20%. But do your research. Go on LinkedIn, go on Glassdoor, and do as much research as you can. Many job postings nowadays will have that salary information. Know that going in that somebody's going to ask you this question and be prepared for it so you can get on with the real meat and potatoes of the interview. All right, number 3, why do you want to work here? Again, this is a trap. This is designed to test your motivation for working at the organization. And if you give a generic response like, "Oh, you guys have pizza on Fridays," or I don't know, I'm making it up. But if you give a generic response, it may signal to the team that you're really not motivated to work there. You're just interviewing because you're just looking for a paycheck, and you're not going to be a high-performing employee. So how do you answer it? Simply, you make it about the interview team, the organization. Narrate a response that aligns your goals with their mission, their values, or even a recent initiative, because that will signal that you've done your homework. So here's an example. I admire your push towards sustainability, and my background in clean tech, I see a real opportunity here to contribute. That really shows you have aspirations to contribute to the company, that you have experience that aligns with what the organization is doing. And it also shows what value you bring, because it invites that interview panel or the recruiter to ask more follow-up questions. "Oh, really? Tell me more about your background in clean tech. I have it on my list of things I wanted to learn more about you. Let's dive into that right now." Again, that's a great situation to find yourself in. Do your homework on really being able to narrate why you want to work at that organization. Now, number 4 is a bit of a click down from our last one. And that one is, what do you know about this job? This is not just a warm-up question. It's not just to make sure you have all the information. It actually tests whether you've done your homework. So how do you answer it? You need to show that you've researched the company, the department, the team. You should use LinkedIn and find somebody else who has that role, see what they're working on as best you can, and come up with a good answer to this question. But you may end the answer with an invitation or another question back to the panel and say, "Hey, am I understanding this role correctly? Is there anything more I should know?" And based on their answer, it could open the door for you to, again, highlight what value you're bringing to the table. All right, number 5, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And this is designed to reveal your long-term fit for the organization, your aspirations, or the lack thereof. If you're too ambitious, it could be a threat to somebody in the room, on the panel. Or if you're too vague, you could say, "Hey, this person's really not motivated and they're not going to be a high performer in our organization." One thing I will say here is, do not say, even if it's true, do not say, "Oh, I plan to be retired in 5 years and I'm going to be on a beach sipping margaritas." That's a horrible answer on so many levels. Do not say that. Even if that's the truth, do not say that. So how do you answer this? Again, it's like the last one. Align your goals with that of the company and what their goals and mission are. That will pay off huge dividends in this answer. And again, help you pivot into different ways you can demonstrate your value and bring value to the table. So you could say something like this as an example. "I hope to be leading projects on a small team here, and while continuing to build on this role that we're talking about today." Again, it reaffirms your interest in the role you're talking about, but it also gives a wink and a nod to the future in that, hey, you do want to be a people leader. And that also, again, like we've talked about before, invites that follow-up question from the panel that says, "Oh, really? Tell me what kind of people leadership you've had, or why are you interested in that kind of thing?" And then it opens up a better dialogue where you can, again, highlight the value you bring to this role. Okay, number 6, tell me about a time you failed. And this is designed, again, it's a trap because you could pull something out of the air and you just can't recover from it, but it's meant to test your emotional intelligence and your accountability. A bad answer could make you look unreliable. So, like our first question about tell me about your biggest weakness, this is a similar way to answer it. Choose a low-risk story, but then one that highlights how you learned and improved over time. So an example could be, "Hey, I missed a deadline early in my career due to overcommitting, but since then I've improved in how I scope projects and commit to and setting realistic timelines." That again signals to the team that you've improved over time, but also invites them to ask about, "Oh, tell me about your project management and how you deal with conflicting timelines." Again, that opens up another dialogue, focusing more on your strengths and what you've learned than what your weakness was or that time you failed. Okay, number 7, why did you leave your last job, or why are you looking to leave the company you're currently at? This is a trap because they're looking for drama or red flags. So really think about and be thoughtful how you answer this question. First of all, stay positive and brief. Don't bash former employers. And I'm going to say, even if they deserve it, right? So here's a perfect example. I used to, in interviews, say, I wouldn't say horrible things, but I would say that they were unkind when I used to work at Tesla and for Elon. And I would, make some passing comment about, well, it's Elon. And that didn't, even though I may have been successful in the interview because, okay, it's Elon, it still didn't paint me in the most positive light. I could just say something like, I could have said, which would have been true, hey, you know what? I'm looking to move back to the Pacific Northwest and focus on that and stay away from bad mouthing or even giving a wink to bad mouthing Elon. So here's another example. I was laid off during a company restructure, and now I'm looking for a role where I can continue to grow my leadership skills. If you're laid off, you just need to own it. So many people are laid off these days. It's not such a scarlet letter as maybe you think it is. So again, a great example is I was laid off during a restructure, and now this is what I'm looking for. And that also invites further conversation and a bit of a deep dive. Oh, really? To expand on what's your perfect job or what your aspirations are. That's a good paradigm to set up in that interview in response to the why did you leave your last job? Okay, and number 8, this actually tests the cultural fit, and it's what kind of work environment do you thrive in? Now, a mismatch here could remove you from the shortlist, let's be real. So tailor your answer to what you've learned about their environment. And then again, this is where your research and pre-work comes into play. You could say something to the effect of, which is pretty middle of the road, I enjoy a mix of collaboration and autonomy. I'm productive in teams and value open communication, but I want the work environment to allow for ownership of my work. Again, you're kind of coming in and speaking to, yes, you like to work in an autonomous situation, but you like to collaborate as far as being on a high-performing team. That's a great answer. Again, it invites more conversation from the interview panel. And that's what you always want to do is kind of give them enough so they're wanting more and ask those follow-up questions. Not that they're having to pull information out of you, but they're like, wow, I'm really intrigued on this aspect of what you just said. And so I'm asking a follow-up question. So it's not about trickery or sidestepping these questions. It's about a strategy. And you need to prepare for these types of questions as much as you would for, those more technical questions that they're easy to anticipate. You need to be honest, but also be smart about your answers to these questions. Always tie your answers back to the value you bring to the table. Especially, I got a question from somebody on one of my videos the other day about how do you combat ageism when, you're on a Zoom interview and the recruiter or whoever you're interviewing with looks deflated because they can tell you're over 50. My answer back to them is how you perform in those interviews or how you answer those questions, you need to always be tying your answers back to the value you bring. And as an older worker in that example, you're bringing a lot more value than somebody with less experience, and you really need to lean into that. Confidence in answering these questions will come from preparation. I actually can remember answering some of these questions and just getting kind of pushed back on my heels without something at the ready, and I had to pull something out of the air, and it wasn't my best day. You don't have to fake your way through it, but you do have to come prepared, and I can't say that enough. Prepare, 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 even if this is your 100th interview you've embarked on over the past however much time. But here's one thing to remember. If you've been invited to interview, if you're in that room, you're already a contender for the job. Now you just have to keep yourself on that short list. Remember, they want to hire you or they wouldn't have invited you to the interview. You have to position yourself as not just a candidate, but a solution for any problems they may have. So listen for those hints as you're interviewing them. And don't forget, I have another video about what questions you as a candidate should be asking during that interview, because those questions are super critical. So if you're hearing pain points from this hiring manager, from this recruiter, think about what value you could bring in the form of a solution potentially to the pain points you're listening for. Preparation turns traps into opportunities. They brought you in because they saw potential. Your job is now to show them they were right. Okay, once again, my name's Rob. I hope you found this helpful, and I'd be absolutely honored if you would subscribe to this channel. Give me a like. It definitely helps me out. Let me know in the comments what kind of questions that felt like traps to you that you've encountered along the way. I'd love to hear those and potentially add them to a future video. Check out my video on job interview red flags that you need to watch out for, because there are some red flags. Again, don't forget, you're interviewing that company just as much as they're interviewing you. And until next time, take care and good luck on those interviews. This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, the premier video podcasting studio in Bellevue, Washington. Visit justtalkstudios.com to learn more and book your session today.